They always tell you not to go into abandoned asylums. Not because of the cops, not because of collapsing ceilings, but because of what's inside. Some places don't forget what happened within their walls. And if you stay too long, neither will you. Mental hospitals in the early 1900s were nothing like today. Patients weren't treated, they were discarded, locked away, forgotten. Their suffering seeped into the walls. And when the asylums shut down, those walls kept their secrets. But sometimes, those secrets don't stay buried. This is the story of Blackwood Asylum, one of the most infamous abandoned hospitals in the country, and the man who walked in but almost didn't make it back out. Darren wasn't a ghost hunter. He wasn't even a believer in the paranormal. He was just a photographer. His goal? To capture eerie, abandoned places, crumbling staircases, shattered windows, nature reclaiming the buildings man had long forgotten. Blackwood Asylum had been closed for over 50 years. People said it was haunted, that patients never really left. But Darren didn't care. To him, it was just another location. He should have listened. Getting inside was easy. The main doors were chained, but a broken window in the east wing gave him access. As soon as he stepped inside, the air changed. It wasn't just cold, it felt wrong. The halls were lined with rusted gurneys, overturned wheelchairs. Faint, peeling words were painted above every doorway, healing through silence. Darren started taking pictures. Click, click. His flashlight beam barely cut through the thick darkness. The floors creaked under his weight. Somewhere in the distance he swore he heard a shuffle, but when he turned, nothing. He kept moving, deeper into the asylum. The walls were covered in scratches, long, jagged marks that looked like fingernails had carved them. And then he found the first room. It still had a bed, rusted, strapped with decayed leather restraints. The mattress was stained dark, and on the wall words had been scratched into the paint. "He is watching." Darren took a photo, then another. That's when he heard it. A voice, soft, weeping. It was coming from the end of the hall. Most people would have turned around, left. But Darren, he had to see. As he stepped closer, the crying stopped. The door at the end of the hallway was barely hanging on its hinges. Slowly, he pushed it open. Inside, someone was sitting on the floor. A woman. She had long, dark hair covering her face. Her hospital gown was so old, it was practically falling apart, and she was rocking back and forth, muttering something over and over. Darren's breath caught in his throat. She shouldn't be here. No one should. He raised his camera, clicked the shutter, and then she stopped moving. The muttering ceased, and she turned her head. Darren couldn't breathe. He couldn't move, because when she turned, her face wasn't right. Her eyes were completely hollow, just black, empty sockets. Her mouth stretched open wider than it should have been, and from inside came a horrible, wet, choking sound. Darren stumbled back. The woman stood up. Then the lights flickered, and she was suddenly right in front of him. Something cold gripped his arm. He felt nails, sharp and digging into his skin. His camera slipped from his hands as he sprinted out of the room, down the hall. The air behind him felt heavy, pressing down on his back. The crying started again, but this time it was laughter. A door slammed shut somewhere. Another creaked open. Darren reached the window he had crawled through and threw himself outside. Darren never went back for his camera. When he checked his arm later that night, he found 4 long scratches where the woman had grabbed him, deep enough to burn. The next day, his photos were still on his memory card, but one of them wasn't his. The last image was inside the asylum, a hallway he didn't remember taking a picture of, and in the middle of the frame, the woman, facing the camera, grinning. If you ever hear crying inside an abandoned asylum, don't look, just run. Subscribe for more horror stories.